June 6, 1944, 1:35 a.m. High above the Cotentin Peninsula in Normandy, France, Claude Klaus, a signalman of the 101st Airborne Division, clung tightly to the PRC six-man-pack radio strapped to his chest. His body jolted violently with the C-47 Skytrain transport plane as an impenetrable blanket of night and dense anti-aircraft fire enveloped the aircraft outside. German 88mm flak shells burst in blinding flashes around the cabin, their shock waves thudding against the fuselage like a relentless hammer. Inside, paratroopers huddled low, the clinking of helmets, ragged breaths, and urgent shouts of the crew blending into a chaotic cacophony. As a non-combatant tasked with post-drop communications, Claude's original mission was straightforward: parachute into the designated zone with his unit, quickly set up his radio equipment, and ensure unbroken contact between Easy Company, 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment of the 101st Airborne Division, the division headquarters, and the amphibious landing forces offshore. But at that moment, both his mission and the transport's flight path teetered on the brink of collapse under the ferocity of the German flak barrage. "Stand by to jump! Stand by to jump!" The jumpmaster's voice roared, muffled by the drone of the engines and the thunder of artillery. Claude lifted a hand to check the radio's shoulder straps, confirming that the spare battery and signal pistol were securely fastened in his webbing pouch. His lifeline, the very foundation of his role as a signalman. The PRC-6 radio weighed approximately 4.5 kilograms with an effective communication range of 3 kilometers, capable of supporting squad-level communications under ideal conditions. But now, even the question of whether the transport would reach the drop zone remained unanswered. He watched in horror as another C-47, barely a wingspan away to the left, took a direct hit from a flak shell. The fuselage erupted in a ball of flame, plummeting like a falling meteor, the screams of its crew fading into the night. The acrid stench of burning aviation fuel hung thick in the air. The instant the red jump light flickered on, Claude followed the paratroopers ahead of him, bending low, stepping forward, and leaping out of the cabin. The frigid night air slashed at his face like a knife. A sharp pop echoed in his ears as the parachute canopy deployed, and his downward momentum slowed abruptly. He glanced up instinctively to check the risers, relieved to see the canopy fully inflated. Yet the tightly formed drop formation he had expected was nowhere to be seen. The paratroopers, scattered by strong winds and the chaos of anti-aircraft fire, drifted down like dandelion seeds caught in a storm. Below, German searchlights swept the sky, their beams cutting through the darkness, while the muzzle flashes of flak guns flickered incessantly. Every time a searchlight beam pierced the night, a burst of intense anti-aircraft fire followed. Parachutes were riddled with bullets, their canopies tearing apart, and soldiers screamed as they plummeted to their deaths, their bodies hitting the ground with sickening thuds. Claude struggled to steer his parachute, trying to drift toward the designated rally point. Below him lay pitch-black fields, dense woodlands and scattered villages, where the occasional shouts of German soldiers and the barking of guard dogs echoed, clear signs that German patrols were sweeping the area. Suddenly, a violent gust of wind slammed into him, sending his body spinning sideways. He crashed into the branches of a large tree, a searing pain exploding in his chest, and his radio nearly slipped from his grasp. Clutching the risers for dear life, he adjusted his posture, finally landing awkwardly in a plowed field. Rolling to absorb the impact, he winced as stones dug into his knees. Tearing himself free from the parachute harness, his first move was to feel for the radio at his waist. Miraculously, the radio's casing bore only scratches, its core components intact. "This is Signalman Claude, 506 Regiment. Does anyone copy? Repeat, does anyone copy?" Claude flipped on the radio's power switch and pressed the transmit button, but only a deafening static filled his ears. He inspected the antenna and found it snapped off at the base, a damage that would drastically reduce the radio's already limited range. Glancing up at the sky, the once dense stream of parachutes had dwindled to a few scattered specks in the distance, replaced by the steady crackle of gunfire and explosions. The direction of the rally point was ablaze with flames, a clear indication that it was already under heavy attack. Claude realized the situation was far worse than anyone had anticipated. The Allied airborne assault had been met with ferocious German resistance, scattering the troops and plunging every drop zone into chaos. His primary mission, to locate his commanding officer and establish communications, now seemed impossible. He had no idea where he was, let alone the whereabouts of his CO. Pulling out his map and compass, he tried to orient himself by the faint glow of distant artillery fire. But the landmarks on the map bore little resemblance to the terrain before him. The Germans, anticipating an Allied airborne landing, had destroyed countless landmarks, and the fields were crisscrossed with anti-tank ditches and barbed wire. Just then, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed from the woods behind him. Claude tensed, grabbing the M1 carbine lying beside him, his only weapon for self-defense, loaded with just 15 rounds, and ducked behind a thick tree trunk, holding his breath. The footsteps grew closer, accompanied by ragged gasps. "Don't shoot! Friendly!" a hoarse voice called out. Peering around the tree, Claude saw a paratrooper staggering toward him, his right trouser leg soaked in blood, a deep gash visible on his arm. He was a member of the 506th Regiment. "Which platoon are you from? Where's the CO?" Claude rushed forward to support him. "I don't know. Our plane was hit, and we scattered as soon as we jumped. I think the platoon leader is dead. I saw him take a flak fragment to the chest," the soldier replied, his voice trembling with fear. "The Germans are everywhere, patrolling with dogs. I just watched 2 of my buddies get gunned down." Claude's heart sank. He helped the wounded soldier to a shallow depression and took cover, then tried the radio again, but only static greeted him. Over the next 10 minutes, Claude encountered 3 more stranded paratroopers, all from different squads of the 506th Regiment. One was a medic with a basic first aid kit, and the other 2 were riflemen. Their weapons still functional, but ammunition running low. None of them knew where the commanding officer was, and none could raise any friendly units on their radios. Fear and confusion etched across their faces. They were adrift in enemy territory. Their current position was at least 3 kilometers from the designated rally point, and the surrounding woods and fields echoed with the shouts of German soldiers and the crackle of gunfire, a clear sign that the German search and destroy patrols were closing in, tightening the noose around the scattered paratroopers. At that moment, Claude was faced with an agonizing choice. As a signalman, his primary duty was to maintain communications. Locating his CO and establishing a link was his top priority. But with the CO's fate unknown, the unit shattered, and his radio damaged, he was powerless to fulfill that mission. If he continued his search alone, he would likely fail and end up captured or killed. If he abandoned the stranded paratroopers to fend for themselves, they would be picked off one by the Germans. More importantly, the 101st Airborne Division's mission was critical. Seize key bridges and transportation hubs before the Normandy landings, tie down German reserve forces, and clear the way for the subsequent amphibious assault. If the scattered paratroopers were eliminated before they could regroup, the entire Normandy landing operation could be thrown into jeopardy. Claude stared down at the radio in his hands, then at the 4 trembling soldiers beside him. Taking a deep breath, he made a decision that went far beyond his official duties. He would temporarily set aside his communications mission, gather the stranded paratroopers into a makeshift squad, and then find a way to contact friendly forces. "We can't keep hiding here alone," Claude said, his voice hoarse but unwavering. "The situation is chaotic, and we don't know where the CO is, but we have to survive first, and then we have to complete our mission. From now on, we're a temporary squad, and I'm in command." His words took the 4 soldiers by surprise. They knew he was a signalman, not a combat unit officer. You're a signalman. Can you lead us in a fight?" one of the riflemen asked hesitantly. "Right now, there's no one else better suited," Claude replied, tapping his radio. "My job is to contact friendly forces, but we can only do that if we stick together and hold a secure position. Besides, I've had basic tactical training. I know enough to get us through this." His words were simple, but they carried a quiet conviction. In the chaos of the battlefield, having a clear chain of command was far better than wandering aimlessly. The 4 soldiers exchanged glances, then nodded, agreeing to follow his lead. Just then, The barking of German guard dogs echoed from the woods, growing closer by the second. Claude knew they had no time to waste. "Medic, tend to everyone's wounds. Stop the bleeding first," he ordered. "You two riflemen, take up defensive positions. One guard the left forest entrance, the other watch the right field. Report any German movements immediately. Don't fire unless absolutely necessary. Conserve ammo." He turned to the wounded soldier he had first encountered. "You, come with me. We need to scout the area and find a defensible position." The soldiers sprang into action, a flicker of resolve replacing the fear in their eyes. Claude and the wounded soldier moved quickly through the darkness, scouting the terrain. Not far away, they spotted an abandoned farmstead, surrounded by low stone walls with several dilapidated buildings, perfect for a temporary stronghold. Best of all, a dry drainage ditch ran alongside the farm, providing a potential escape route. "That's our spot," Claude said, pointing to the farm. "We'll move there and use the stone walls and buildings to set up our defenses." As they prepared to move out, several flashlight beams suddenly cut through the trees to the left, accompanied by shouted German commands. "The Germans are coming!" the rifleman on guard duty whispered urgently. Claude made a split-second decision. "Medic, take the wounded and get to the farm first. The rest of us will cover you." He and the other riflemen ducked behind the stone wall, raising their rifles and aiming at the approaching flashlight beams. The German patrol, about 6 men armed with MP-40 submachine guns, led by a guard dog, drew closer. "Wait until they're within range. Aim for the leader," Claude whispered to the rifleman beside him. When the Germans were about 50 meters away, the dog suddenly let out a fierce bark, lunging toward their position. The German soldiers immediately raised their weapons, their flashlights locking onto the stone wall. "Fire!" Claude shouted, squeezing the trigger of his M1 carbine. The rifle cracked, and the lead German soldier fell to the ground. The rifleman beside him fired simultaneously, hitting another soldier in the shoulder, who stumbled backward. The remaining Germans dived for cover, unleashing a hail of bullets from their MP-40s. Bullets ricocheted off the stone wall, sending chips flying in all directions. "Retreat!" Claude grabbed the rifleman's arm, and the two of them sprinted toward the farm under cover of the German fire. The Germans did not pursue, wary of the possibility of more Allied paratroopers lying in wait. When Claude and the rifleman reached the farm, the medic and the wounded soldier were already hiding inside one of the dilapidated buildings. "Barricade the door. Use whatever you can find," Claude shouted. The soldiers quickly slammed the wooden door shut, bracing it with farm tools and large stones. Leaning against the wall, Claude gasped for breath. The skirmish had been brief but intense. Checking his ammo, he found only 10 rounds left in his M1 carbine. "Everyone report ammo and equipment status," he ordered. A quick tally revealed grim news. Their combined ammunition was more than half depleted, just 32 rounds left for the M1 carbines, 45 for the M1 Garands, and 4 hand grenades remaining. The medic's first aid kit contained bandages, hemostatic powder, and morphine, but they had no heavy weapons or body armor to speak of. Against a well-equipped German patrol of unknown size, they were woefully outmatched. Worst of all, they were still cut off from friendly forces, a tiny, isolated pocket in enemy territory. Claude moved to the door, peering through a crack to survey the outside. The night remained pitch black, but the distant rumble of artillery fire had grown louder. Allied bombers were pounding German defensive positions along the Normandy coast, a clear sign that the massive amphibious assault was imminent. He knew they had to hold the farm at all costs, either until they could establish communications or until the landing forces arrived. But first, they had to fix the radio. Claude retrieved the damaged PRC-6 and placed it on a rickety wooden table, using the medic's flashlight to examine its internal components. Designed specifically for paratroopers and infantry squads, the PRC-6 was relatively simple in construction, consisting of a transmitter, receiver, battery pack, and antenna. As a trained signalman, Claude had received specialized training in radio repair. He quickly identified the problem. Besides the broken antenna, the power connector was slightly loose, another factor contributing to the poor signal. Pulling a small toolkit from his webbing, containing a screwdriver, pliers, and electrical tape, he set to work. Straightening the broken antenna as best he could with the pliers, He then used the tape to secure the loose power connector. Next, he tuned the radio to the 101st Airborne Division's dedicated communications frequency. This is the 506th Regiment Temporary Squad. Calling Division Headquarters. Calling Division Headquarters. Do you copy? Do you copy? Claude pressed the transmit button, speaking into the microphone. This time, instead of pure static, a faint signal crackled through the speaker. A distant voice, too garbled to make out clearly, but unmistakably another Allied radio transmission. A surge of hope shot through Claude. If they could pick up a faint signal, it meant friendly forces were not too far away, or their radio was powerful enough to reach them. He adjusted the antenna's angle repeatedly, calling out into the microphone as he did so. This is the 506th Regiment Temporary Squad, located near an abandoned farmstead southwest of the designated rally point. German patrols are active in the area. We've engaged them in a brief skirmish, with one soldier wounded. We have 5 men total and are in urgent need of reinforcements and further orders. Suddenly, a clear voice crackled back over the radio. This is 3rd Battalion, 506th Regiment. Do you have a precise location? Are there German forces in your vicinity? Claude nearly shouted for joy. Our position is approximately 3 kilometers southwest of the rally point, at the abandoned farmstead. German search and destroy patrols are in the area. We've repelled one attack, but we're low on ammo. We need immediate support. Just then, the sound of a vehicle engine roared outside, accompanied by shouted German orders. Claude froze, switching off the radio speaker and gesturing frantically for silence. The Germans must have found us. Prepare for combat, he whispered urgently. The soldiers scrambled to their defensive positions, gripping their weapons tightly, their eyes fixed on the windows. Outside, the German truck pulled up to the farm gate, and the sound of doors slamming, soldiers disembarking, and dogs barking filled the air. This was a far larger patrol than the one they had just repelled. Claude knew a brutal fight was imminent, and he, a non-combatant signalman by trade, was now tasked with leading this ragtag squad in a desperate defense of the isolated farmstead. Could they hold out? Would friendly reinforcements arrive in time? The fate of this makeshift unit hung in the balance, hinging on the leadership of a soldier who had never expected to command in battle. To understand the desperate situation Claude Klaus found himself in, we must look back at the broader strategic planning of the Normandy landings. In June 1944, Operation Overlord, the Allied invasion of Normandy, was the pivotal campaign to open a second front in Europe, and the airborne assault was its vanguard. The core of the Allied airborne strategy was to drop paratroopers into the Cottontown Peninsula and Caen regions 6 to 8 hours before the amphibious landings. Their mission: seize key bridges, transportation hubs, and high ground, tie down German reserve forces, prevent German reinforcements from reaching the landing beaches, and clear the way for the successful amphibious assault. The airborne operation was entrusted to 3 elite units: the U.S. 82nd Airborne Division, the U.S. 101st Airborne Division, and the British 6th Airborne Division, totaling approximately 35,000 troops. Among them, Claude's unit, the 101st Airborne Division, nicknamed the Screaming Eagles, comprised 3 parachute infantry regiments, 1 glider infantry regiment, and various support units, totaling around 13,000 men under the command of Major General Maxwell D. Taylor. The 101st Corps mission was to capture 4 critical bridges spanning the Corentin Canal and the Douve River in northwestern Cottontown Peninsula, control the main highway from Cherbourg to Caen, and block the German 21st Panzer Division from reinforcing the Omaha and Utah beaches. Claude Klaus was assigned to the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment of the 101st Airborne Division, serving as a signalman in the regimental signal platoon, directly under the command of the signal platoon leader. As a paratrooper signalman, Claude's role was clearly defined yet absolutely critical. In airborne operations, communications were the lifeline that maintained unit cohesion. After jumping, paratroopers needed to regroup quickly. Units relied on radios to confirm positions, relay orders, report enemy movements, and maintain contact with division headquarters and the amphibious landing forces offshore, while also guiding subsequent glider-borne reinforcements to their landing zones. The PRC-6 Manpack radio Claude carried was a portable communication device adopted by the U.S. military in 1943, specifically designed for paratroopers and infantry squads. It utilized a crystal oscillator circuit, weighed 4.5 kilograms, and was worn strapped to the chest. Equipped with a collapsible metal antenna, it had an effective range of 3 kilometers under ideal conditions, powered by a 12-volt battery with a runtime of approximately 8 hours. In addition to the radio, Claude carried a signal pistol, signal flares, red, green, and white, each corresponding to different communication commands, spare batteries, electrical tape, a basic repair kit, and his M1 carbine, a weapon intended solely for self-defense, not frontline combat. Chambered in .30 carbine, it had a 15-round magazine and an effective range of 200 meters, significantly less powerful than the German MP-40 submachine gun. Against the Allies' meticulous airborne plan, the German defensive deployments in Normandy, while flawed, still boasted formidable core strength. The Normandy region was defended by the German Army Group B, commanded by Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, consisting of the 7th Army and the 15th Army, with a total strength of approximately 580,000 troops, supported by 1,500 tanks and self-propelled guns, and 6,700 artillery pieces and mortars. Directly responsible for the defense of the Cotentin Peninsula was the 84th Corps of the 7th Army, which included the 709th Static Infantry Division, the 243rd Static Infantry Division, and the 21st Panzer Division. These German units had constructed a dense network of defensive fortifications along the Normandy coast, including reinforced concrete bunkers, anti-tank ditches, barbed wire fences, and minefields. Meanwhile, large numbers of mobile patrols and search-and-destroy units, equipped with guard dogs and searchlights, were deployed in the rear areas specifically to counter Allied airborne landings. Notably, prior to the Allied airborne assault, the Germans had received fragmentary intelligence indicating that the Allies were planning a landing in Normandy, but they had failed to pinpoint the exact time, location, and scale of the airborne operation. Field Marshal Rommel had ordered increased night patrols in the Normandy region and deployed additional flak units and mobile reaction forces in potential airborne drop zones. This was the key reason for the fierce resistance the Allied airborne forces encountered. German flak units launched a relentless barrage against the Allied transport fleet at night, while mobile search and destroy teams quickly swept the drop zones, attempting to eliminate the scattered paratroopers before they could regroup. Returning to the night of June 5, 1944, just hours before Claude's jump, the paratroopers of the 101st Airborne Division completed their final preparations at airfields in England. Each paratrooper carried 24 hours worth of rations, a canteen, a first aid kit, a map, a compass, fragmentation grenades, and their personal weapon, with signalmen bearing the additional weight of their communication equipment. The 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, to which Claude belonged, was transported aboard C-47 Skytrain aircraft, the workhorse of Allied airborne operations. Each C-47 could carry 18 paratroopers, had a range of 2,600 kilometers, a maximum speed of 450 kilometers per hour, and was armed with two 12.7 millimeter machine guns for self-defense. The 506th mission was to parachute near the town of Sainte-Mère-Église in northwestern Cotentin Peninsula, regroup, capture 2 bridges in the vicinity, establish defensive positions, and tie down German forces to prevent them from reinforcing Utah Beach. However, the Allied airborne operation ran into trouble from the very start. Hammered by intense German flak, compounded by poor nighttime visibility and strong winds, numerous C-47 transport planes strayed far from their intended flight paths. Instead of landing in a concentrated drop zone, the paratroopers of the 101st Airborne Division were scattered across a 40-kilometer wide swathe of territory. Worse still, many transports were shot down by German flak, killing all paratroopers on board. Others were hit during their jump, with paratroopers falling to their deaths or sustaining serious injuries upon landing in the treacherous terrain. Claude's transport, though not directly hit, had veered drastically off course, ultimately dropping its paratroopers 3 kilometers southwest of the designated rally point, a mistake that would leave him stranded behind enemy lines and set the stage for his desperate fight for survival. During pre-mission briefings, Allied commanders had repeatedly emphasized the importance of rapid regrouping and maintaining unbroken communications, explicitly ordering signalmen to set up their radios immediately after landing to establish contact with nearby units. But the reality on the ground far exceeded all expectations. Scores of signalmen were killed or wounded during the jump, their radios destroyed upon impact. Those who survived found themselves isolated, unable to reach their commanding officers amid the chaos. Claude Klaus was one of the few lucky signalmen to emerge from the jump with his radio mostly intact, but he had never imagined that his role would evolve from a simple communications specialist to the de facto leader of a stranded paratrooper squad. At this point, it is essential to consider the stark disparity in forces to fully grasp the odds stacked against Claude. The 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment had been assigned a jump strength of approximately 2,000 men, but fewer than 800 managed to land safely and regroup, a casualty rate exceeding 60%. Against them stood German search and destroy patrols, each consisting of 10 to 20 men armed with MP-40 submachine guns, MG-42 general-purpose machine guns, and mortars, possessing superior firepower, mobility, and coordination. Claude's makeshift squad of 5 men, low on ammo and lacking heavy weapons, with 1 wounded soldier in their ranks, faced overwhelming odds in their fight to hold the farmstead against a well-equipped German force. Most crucially, Claude's decision to take command was not part of any Allied tactical plan. It was a spontaneous response to the chaos of battle. In modern military doctrine, signalmen are classified as support personnel, receiving no formal training in combat leadership. Yet in the heat of battle, with the unit shattered and commanding officers missing or dead, Claude's initiative to rally the stranded paratroopers proved to be the difference between survival and annihilation. While such cases of non-combat personnel assuming command were not unheard of in airborne operations, few were as successful as Claude's in regrouping scattered forces, establishing communications, holding their ground, and ultimately fulfilling their mission objectives. It was against this backdrop of strategic importance and overwhelming odds that Claude's story unfolded, a tale of ordinary courage in the face of extraordinary adversity. At 2:15 a.m. on June 6, 1944, inside the dilapidated farmstead building, Claude had just established brief contact with 3rd Battalion, 506th Regiment, when the roar of the German vehicle engine outside suddenly cut out. He immediately signaled for absolute silence, then crept to the window, peering through a gap in the wooden planks. 3 German military trucks were parked at the farm gate, and around 20 German soldiers were disembarking and forming up. 2 of them set up an MG-42 general-purpose machine gun, its barrel trained directly on the building, while 10 soldiers formed an assault line, advancing toward the door. The remaining soldiers established a perimeter around the farm, cutting off any escape routes. Approximately 20 German troops, armed with a general-purpose machine gun. "They've got us surrounded," Claude whispered to the soldiers beside him. "We're low on ammo. We can't fight a pitched battle. We'll hold out here using the building and stone walls for cover and wait for a response from friendly forces." He quickly adjusted their defensive positions. "You 2 riflemen take the east and north windows. Use the M1 Garand's long-range accuracy to target the German machine gunner and their commander first. Medics, stay in the center of the room. Tend to any casualties immediately and keep an eye on the west window for enemy movements. Wounded soldier, help the medic move debris to reinforce the interior walls." No sooner had he finished his orders than the Germans outside began shouting in broken French and English, demanding the Allied soldiers surrender. Claude ignored the calls, signaling for the men to check their weapons and stand ready. Seconds later, the German MG-42 erupted in a deafening roar, its bullets tearing into the wooden walls like a storm, splintering planks and shattering the windows into a shower of glass. "Hold your fire! Wait for them to get closer!" Claude shouted, his voice drowned out by the machine gun's chatter. The German suppression fire lasted for about 30 seconds, then 5 soldiers armed with MP-40 submachine guns advanced toward the door under cover of the machine gun. "East window, fire!" Claude timed it perfectly. The rifleman at the east window squeezed the trigger, and the M1 Garand barked once. The lead German soldier fell to the ground, dead. The riflemen at the north window fired simultaneously, hitting another soldier in the shoulder, who stumbled backward, screaming in pain. The remaining 3 German soldiers dove for cover, unleashing a torrent of bullets toward the windows. Grenade! Claude pulled a fragmentation grenade from his belt, pulled the pin, counted to 2, then hurled it toward the German positions. The grenade exploded with a dull thud in the middle of the German formation, sending dirt and debris flying. 2 German soldiers were thrown backward by the blast, while the third scrambled to his feet and fled toward the farm gate. Seizing the opportunity, Claude took aim and fired a single shot, hitting the fleeing soldier in the leg, sending him crashing to the ground. The Germans' first assault had been repelled. Outside the building lay 5 German bodies, and 1 wounded soldier lay on the ground, moaning in agony. Claude did not order a pursuit. He knew the Germans still held superior numbers and controlled the perimeter. "Check ammo," he shouted. A quick count revealed their worst fears. Their ammunition was now more than half gone, with only 12 rounds left for the M1 carbines, 28 for the M1 Garands, and 2 hand grenades remaining. To make matters worse, the German MG-42 continued to fire sporadically at the building, pinning them down and limiting their movement. "We can't keep this up," Claude said, his brow furrowed. "We need to resupply ammo, and we need to boost the radio's range to contact more friendly forces." He picked up the PRC-6 radio again, trying to re-establish contact with 3rd Battalion, 506th Regiment. This time the signal was still faint, with only fragments of the battalion's transmissions coming through. "The building's walls are blocking the signal, or the damaged antenna is limiting our range," Claude deduced. He made a risky decision. He would move the radio to the roof of the building, using the higher elevation to extend the signal's reach. The building had a small attic skylight. Claude ordered the 2 riflemen to continue defending the windows, suppressing the German fire, while he climbed into the attic under the medic's cover. Carefully pushing open the skylight, he peeked out. The German MG-42 team was still focused on the front of the building, oblivious to the activity on the roof. Claude quickly placed the radio on a roof beam, adjusting the antenna to point toward the direction of the designated rally point. "This is the 506th Regiment Temporary Squad. Calling 3rd Battalion. Calling 3rd Battalion. We are under attack by approximately 20 German troops. We're low on ammo and urgently need reinforcements. Repeat, urgently need reinforcements," Claude shouted into the microphone. This time a clear voice crackled back. "This is 3rd Battalion, 506th Regiment. We have your position. We are moving to your location now. ETA 30 minutes. Maintain your position. We will confirm our identity with signal flares upon arrival." Relief washed over Claude. He immediately called down through the skylight to the soldiers inside. "Reinforcements are 30 minutes out. We just need to hold on until then." The soldiers' morale surged, their tired faces lighting up with renewed hope. Claude left the radio on the roof, covering it with a tattered piece of cloth to conceal it from the Germans, then climbed back down into the attic and returned to the main room. Outside, the Germans launched another assault. This time, they changed tactics. Instead of a direct frontal attack, they split into 2 groups, attempting to flank the building from both sides, while the MG-42 continued to lay down suppressive fire on the windows. "East and north windows. Stay alert. Don't expose yourselves," Claude shouted. He ran to the west window, peering through the gap to monitor the German flanking movement. Outside the west window, 4 German soldiers were moving slowly along the stone wall, trying to circle around to the rear of the building. Claude immediately took a hand grenade from the medic, pulled the pin, and waited for the perfect moment. When the Germans were about 10 meters from the window, he threw open the skylight and hurled the grenade with all his strength. The grenade exploded in the narrow gap between the stone wall and the building, catching all 4 German soldiers in the blast. 2 were killed instantly, and the other 2 fell to the ground, wounded. As Claude dealt with the threat on the west side, the riflemen at the east window suddenly shouted, "Germans flanking from the east!" Claude rushed to the east window, just in time to see 3 German soldiers climbing over the farm's stone wall, closing in on the east window. Grabbing his M1 carbine, he fired a single shot, hitting one of the soldiers in the chest, who fell dead instantly. The remaining 2 Germans scrambled back behind the stone wall, exchanging fire with the riflemen at the window, trapping them in a stalemate. The battle had descended into a brutal grind. The Germans launched repeated flanking attacks, but each time Claude's squad repelled them, inflicting heavy casualties. During the fighting, one of the riflemen was hit in the arm by a stray bullet, but the medic quickly bandaged the wound, stopping the bleeding. The German casualties continued to mount. 12 bodies now lay outside the building, and 3 wounded soldiers had been dragged back to the German perimeter. Claude knew time was on their side. Reinforcements were drawing near. He decided to take another risk, using simple signal communication methods to locate other stranded paratroopers in the area, bolstering their small squad's strength. Pulling out his signal pistol, he loaded a green flare, the Allied signal for rally point. Climbing back up to the attic skylight, he waited for a lull in the German fire, then fired the flare high into the night sky, where it burst into a bright green light, illuminating the Normandy countryside. 5 minutes after the flare was fired, a response came from the woods east of the farm. 3 short rifle shots followed by 1 long burst, the prearranged Allied signal for friendly forces present. Claude's heart leaped with joy. He immediately ordered one of the riflemen to fire a white flare toward the woods, confirming their position. Moments later, 5 more stranded paratroopers emerged from the trees, all members of the 506th Regiment, including a machine gunner carrying an M19 19A4 Browning machine gun and 300 rounds of ammunition. The arrival of the 5 paratroopers boosted the squad's strength to 10 men and provided them with much-needed heavy firepower. Claude immediately adjusted their defensive positions, positioning the machine gunner at the attic skylight to use the M19 1904's firepower to suppress the German MG-42. The M19 1904 was a mainstay of U.S. Army infantry units during World War II, weighing 14.7 kilograms, with an effective range of 1,000 meters, fed by a 250-round ammunition belt, its firepower more than capable of matching the German MG-42. With the machine gunner in position, Claude gave the order to fire. The M19 1904 roared to life, its bullets sweeping toward the German MG-42 position. The German machine gunner was forced to abandon his position, scrambling for cover. Seizing the initiative, Claude ordered 2 riflemen to charge out of the building, scavenging weapons and ammunition from the dead German soldiers. The 2 men sprinted out under cover of the machine gun fire, returning moments later with 4 MP-40 submachine guns, 10 extra magazines, 3 hand grenades, and some food rations. As the squad replenished their supplies, the distant sound of heavy gunfire and Allied shouts echoed through the night. Reinforcements from 3rd Battalion, 506th Regiment had arrived. Seeing the writing on the wall, the remaining German soldiers quickly boarded their trucks and fled the area, leaving their dead and wounded behind. Claude led his makeshift squad out of the farmstead, meeting up with the 3rd Battalion reinforcements. The battalion commander clasped Claude's hand firmly, saying, "You've done an outstanding job, soldier. If you hadn't held this position and established communications, we never would have found you, and we might have walked right into a German ambush." After the reunion, Claude relinquished command of the temporary squad back to the 3rd Battalion officers, returning to his original role as a signalman. He climbed back onto the farm roof, retrieved his damaged PRC-6 radio, and performed a full inspection and repair. Using the farm as a temporary communications hub, he assisted the battalion commander in contacting other scattered paratrooper squads in the area. Over the next 2 hours, thanks to Claude's communication efforts, 3rd Battalion successfully regrouped 6 more makeshift squads, bringing their total strength to 87 men and restoring a portion of their combat effectiveness. During this process, the simple communication methods Claude employed proved to be the key to rallying the scattered forces amid the chaos of the airborne drop. In addition to the PRC-6 radio, he utilized a combination of signal flares, verbal passwords, and rifle shot codes to establish contact with friendly forces. These methods adhered to Allied communication protocols. Green flares signaled rally point, red flares signaled urgent support needed, and white flares signaled friendly identification. Rifle shot codes were agreed upon on the fly based on battlefield conditions. 3 short bursts followed by 1 long burst meant friendly forces here, while 2 short bursts and 2 long bursts meant enemy forces spotted. These low-tech communication methods proved invaluable in the face of widespread radio damage, serving as a critical lifeline for the scattered paratroopers to coordinate their actions. Furthermore, the tactics Claude employed to rally the squad demonstrated remarkable adaptability and quick thinking. Instead of recklessly searching for the main force, he prioritized regrouping the stranded paratroopers around him and establishing a defensible position to ensure their survival. When faced with the German assault, he used the terrain to his advantage, adopting a hold and wait for reinforcements strategy to avoid a suicidal frontal engagement, preserving his men's lives to the greatest extent possible. Upon receiving word of incoming reinforcements, he took the initiative to expand his squad's strength using signal flares, laying the groundwork for the subsequent battle to capture the key bridge. Though Claude had no formal command training, his tactical decisions were perfectly suited to the chaotic battlefield environment, showcasing his natural tactical acumen and ability to make sound judgments under pressure. By 4:30 a.m. on June 6, 1944, Claude had helped 3rd Battalion establish a stable temporary communications hub, regrouped the scattered paratroopers in the area, and successfully established contact with the 101st Airborne Division headquarters. At that moment, the distant rumble of naval gunfire echoed across the English Channel. Allied amphibious landing forces had begun their bombardment of German coastal defenses, and the Normandy landings had officially begun. Claude knew his mission was far from over. He would now be responsible for maintaining communications between 3rd Battalion, Division headquarters, and the amphibious landing forces, providing critical communication support for the upcoming mission to seize the key bridges and transportation hubs. At 5 a.m. on June 6, 1944, the naval gunfire from the Allied amphibious landing forces reached a crescendo. German coastal defenses along the Cotentin Peninsula crumbled under the relentless bombardment, sending plumes of smoke and dust billowing into the sky. Acting on orders from division headquarters, the commander of 3rd Battalion, 506th Regiment, decided to launch an immediate advance toward their primary objective, the critical bridge spanning the Carentan Canal. Their mission was to capture the bridge and establish defensive positions, blocking the German 21st Panzer Division from reinforcing Utah Beach. As a signalman, Claude was assigned to the battalion's lead element, tasked with maintaining real-time communication between the lead force, battalion headquarters, division headquarters, and the amphibious landing forces offshore. Before the advance, the 3rd Battalion reorganized its 87 regrouped soldiers into combat-ready units. 3 rifle squads of 25 men each, armed with M1 Garand rifles, captured MP-40 submachine guns, 2 M1919A4 general-purpose machine guns per squad, and 160mm mortar. The remaining 12 men formed a support squad consisting of 4 signalmen, with Claude as the team leader, 4 medics, and 4 ammunition carriers. Claude performed a final inspection of the communication equipment. His repaired PRC-6 radio was transmitting a stable signal, spare batteries were fully charged, and each rifle squad was assigned a dedicated signalman and a PRC-6 radio. 3 dedicated communication frequencies were established, one for the lead force to communicate with battalion headquarters, one for battalion headquarters to communicate with division headquarters, and one for inter-squad communication between the rifle squads. At 5:15 a.m., the 3rd Battalion lead element departed the abandoned farmstead, advancing covertly toward the Carentan Canal along the dry drainage ditch. The first light of dawn was breaking, casting a faint glow over the landscape, which provided much-needed visibility, but also increased the risk of detection by German patrols. Carrying his radio on his back, Claude followed closely behind the battalion commander, constantly monitoring the radio signal while scanning the surrounding area for any signs of enemy activity. During the advance, they encountered several small German patrols, all of which were eliminated by the lead rifle squad in swift ambushes, with minimal casualties. 3 men wounded, 2 lightly, 1 seriously. At 6 a.m., the 3rd Battalion lead element reached a wooded area near the Carentan Canal, approximately 500 meters from the target bridge. The battalion commander ordered the unit to take cover and dispatched a reconnaissance team to scout the German defenses at the bridge. The reconnaissance team returned with a detailed report. The bridge was guarded by a reinforced German squad of approximately 15 men, armed with one MG-42 general-purpose machine gun, two MP-40 submachine guns, and 10 carabiner 98K rifles. Barbed wire fences and anti-tank ditches flanked both ends of the bridge, and a reinforced concrete bunker had been built on the west bank, housing the MG-42 machine gun team, whose fire covered the entire bridge deck. "We must capture the bridge by 6:30 a.m. Otherwise, German reinforcements will arrive," the battalion commander said, checking his watch and addressing the squad leaders and Claude. "Squad 1 will launch a frontal diversionary attack to draw the German fire. Squad 2 will circle around to the east bank and cut off the German retreat route. Squad 3 will suppress the machine gun bunker with heavy fire. Claude, you must ensure unbroken communication between all squads. If you detect any German reinforcements, report them to battalion headquarters and division headquarters immediately." With the mission objectives assigned, the squads moved into position. Claude selected a tall oak tree as his communication hub, placing the radio on a sturdy branch and adjusting the antenna to ensure signal coverage for all three rifle squads. "All squads, check communication equipment and report status," Claude said, pressing the transmit button. Clear responses came from the signalmen of squads 1, 2, and 3 in turn. The signal was strong and stable. At 6:10 a.m., Squad 1 launched their diversionary attack, with M1 Garand rifles and MP-40 submachine guns opening fire simultaneously, targeting the bridge deck and the bunker. The Germans responded immediately, and the MG-42 machine gun in the bunker erupted in a deafening roar, while the German soldiers on the bridge returned fire with their rifles and submachine guns. Following the prearranged plan, Squad 1 engaged in a fighting retreat, drawing the Germans' full attention to the front of the bridge. Meanwhile, Squad 2 moved silently along the canal bank, concealed by tall reeds, advancing toward the bridge's rear position. Squad 3 positioned their two M19, 19A4 machine guns at the edge of the woods, their barrels trained on the bunker's firing slit, waiting for the order to attack. "Squad 2, confirm your position," Claude asked over the radio. "Squad 2 has reached the rear of the bridge, ready to cut off the retreat route," came the response from the squad signalman. "Squad 3, suppress the bunker, fire at will," the battalion commander ordered via Claude's radio. Squad 3's machine guns roared to life, sending a hail of bullets slamming into the bunker's firing slit, and the German MG-42's rate of fire slowed drastically under the withering suppressive fire. Just then, a frantic signal crackled over Claude's radio, sent by the support squad's perimeter guards. German reinforcement column spotted, approximately 50 men in 3 military trucks, heading toward the bridge. "ETA, 10 minutes. Claude's heart skipped a beat. He relayed the message to the battalion commander immediately. The commander's face tightened with resolve as he issued a new order. "Accelerate the attack. Squad 2, launch your assault immediately. Squads 1 and 3 provide maximum fire support. We must capture the bridge before the German reinforcements arrive." Claude quickly transmitted the commander's order to all squads. Upon receiving the order, Squad 2 launched a surprise attack on the German rear guard, with MP-40 submachine guns blazing. Caught off guard by the sudden assault from behind, the German defenders on the bridge panicked, their lines descending into chaos. Seizing the opportunity, Squad 3 intensified their machine gun fire, finally silencing the MG-42 in the bunker. Squad 1 then launched a full-scale charge, storming across the bridge deck. The battle erupted into a fierce close-quarters engagement, with coordination between the squads entirely dependent on Claude's communication support. "Squad 1, enemy remnants on your left. Watch your flank." "Squad 2, Germans attempting to break out. Tighten the perimeter." "Squad 3, one German soldier left in the bunker. Clear it immediately." Claude relayed real-time battlefield updates from each squad to the battalion commander and transmitted the commander's orders back to the squads, ensuring the attack maintained its momentum without any confusion. During the fighting, Squad 1's radio was hit by German gunfire and rendered inoperable. But Claude quickly ordered Squad 1's soldiers to move closer to his communication hub, using his radio to relay their messages and keep them integrated into the battle plan. At 6:25 a.m., the last German soldier on the bridge was killed, and the critical Carentan Canal Bridge was successfully captured. By this time, the German reinforcement column had reached a position 1 kilometer from the bridge and had begun launching attacks to retake it. The battalion commander immediately ordered all squads to establish defensive positions using the bridge and the captured bunker, preparing to repel the German counterattack. Claude transmitted a battle report to battalion headquarters and division headquarters. Carentan Canal Bridge captured, German reinforcement column of approximately 50 men attacking our position, requesting immediate support. Upon receiving the report, division headquarters immediately ordered nearby glider-borne reinforcements to move to the bridge and directed naval gunfire from the amphibious landing forces to target the approaching German column. Claude maintained constant communication, relaying fire support coordinates from the battalion commander to the naval forces and updating division headquarters on the defensive situation. Thanks to the combined firepower of the naval artillery and the 3rd Battalion's tenacious defense, the German reinforcement column was repeatedly repelled, suffering heavy casualties before finally retreating in disarray. At 7 a.m., the 3rd Battalion's main force arrived, fully taking over the bridge's defensive responsibilities. Claude conducted a full inspection and maintenance of the communication equipment, moving the radio to a temporary command post near the bridge, where he continued to provide communication support between battalion headquarters, division headquarters, and the amphibious landing forces offshore. By this point, the 3rd Battalion had suffered 12 casualties in the battle to capture the bridge, 3 killed, 9 wounded, while killing 32 German soldiers and capturing 18 others, successfully accomplishing their mission objectives as ordered by division headquarters. During a lull in the fighting, the 3rd Battalion commander clapped Claude on the shoulder, saying, "Claude, you were outstanding today. Without your communication support, we never would have captured this bridge so quickly, let alone held off the German counterattack. For a signalman, you're a better commander than most professional officers." Claude merely smiled and returned to his work, carefully tuning the radio's frequency. To him, maintaining unbroken communications was his duty. Whether acting as a signalman or a temporary commander, he had simply done his best to fulfill his mission. With the capture of the Carentan Canal Bridge, other units of the 101st Airborne Division also succeeded in their mission objectives. All 4 critical bridges spanning the Carentan Canal and the Douve River were now under Allied control. The main highway from Cherbourg to Caen was cut, and the German 21st Panzer Division's route to reinforce Utah and Omaha beaches was completely blocked. Claude's communication work continued around the clock, and his PRC-6 radio served as a vital link connecting the scattered units, ensuring the coordination of their combat operations and contributing significantly to the success of the Normandy landings. By 8 a.m. on June 6, 1944, the first light of dawn had fully broken over Normandy, illuminating the blood-soaked battlefield. Inside the temporary command post at the Carentan Canal Bridge, Claude sat diligently recording every message received over the radio, beads of sweat forming on his forehead, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep, yet his hands remained steady as he operated the equipment. Thanks to the temporary communications hub he had established, the 101st Airborne Division had regrouped more scattered paratroopers, restoring its strength to 60% of its pre-jump levels, successfully consolidating the captured bridges and defensive positions, and building a solid forward barrier for the advancing amphibious landing forces. Looking back on this remarkable tale of a signalman turned makeshift commander amid the chaos of the Normandy airborne drop, Claude Klaus's actions were far from a stroke of luck. They were a testament to a soldier's sense of duty and quick thinking under fire. As a signalman, he stepped far beyond the narrow confines of his official role, taking the initiative to rally scattered troops, devise tactics, and assume command at a critical moment when the unit was shattered and the chain of command had collapsed. His tactical approach, hold first, then regroup, prioritize communications, use multiple methods to contact friendly forces, was perfectly tailored to the chaos of the battlefield. Outnumbered and outgunned, he avoided reckless frontal assaults, relying instead on terrain to preserve his men's lives, and used communication to rally his forces, ultimately achieving the crucial objective of holding out against superior odds and waiting for reinforcements. From a tactical perspective, Claude's temporary command provides a valuable case study in unit cohesion during chaotic airborne operations. He creatively combined specialized communication equipment with low-tech signaling methods, using signal flares and rifle shot codes to establish a stable communication network when his PRC-6 radio was damaged, effectively solving the core problem of communication blackout that plagued the Allied airborne forces on D-Day. Additionally, his tactical acumen during the battle, his ability to allocate resources effectively, accurately assess enemy movements, and seize opportunities to expand his squad's strength, not only ensured the survival of his makeshift unit, but also helped 3rd Battalion quickly restore its combat effectiveness, laying the groundwork for the successful capture of the key bridge. As the 3rd Battalion commander noted, Claude's communication support and temporary leadership were the linchpin that prevented the unit from falling into a German ambush and enabled them to accomplish their mission objectives. From a strategic perspective, Claude's actions played a critical supporting role in the overall success of the Normandy landings. As the vanguard of the Allied invasion, the 101st Airborne Division's ability to fulfill its mission objectives directly impacted the safety of the amphibious landing forces offshore. If Claude had chosen to abandon the stranded paratroopers and search for the main force alone, not only would those 5 men have likely been killed or captured by the Germans, but 3rd Battalion would have struggled to locate and regroup other scattered squads. The capture of the Carentan Canal Bridge would have been delayed, allowing the German 21st Panzer Division to reinforce the landing beaches, potentially inflicting catastrophic losses on the Allied amphibious forces. Though Claude's temporary command may have seemed like a small-scale tactical success, it had far-reaching strategic implications, ensuring the 101st Airborne Division could fulfill its role in Operation Overlord and helping to secure the Allied foothold in Normandy. Most importantly, Claude's story highlights the immense value of unexpected leaders in the fog of war. Modern military doctrine emphasizes highly specialized roles for soldiers, but the uncertainty of combat often requires individuals to step outside their designated roles and demonstrate versatility. As a support specialist with no formal command training, Claude rose to the occasion in a moment of crisis, using his basic tactical training and clear judgment to lead his men to victory, a testament to the U.S. military's emphasis on training soldiers to think independently and adapt to changing battlefield conditions. His story underscores a fundamental truth of warfare. In the chaos and confusion of battle, individual initiative and courage can often turn the tide of a fight. The smoke of war has long since cleared, but Claude Klaus's story remains a powerful reminder of ordinary soldiers' extraordinary courage. He embodied the spirit of duty beyond orders, using his skills as a signalman to forge a lifeline of communication amid the chaos of battle, and his resolve as a leader to hold his ground against overwhelming odds. In the Normandy landings, a campaign that changed the course of world history, soldiers like Claude may not have earned medals or widespread fame, but their collective courage and sacrifice were the foundation upon which the Allied victory was built. Today, the bridge over the Carentan Canal has been rebuilt and stands as a historical landmark commemorating the Normandy landings. When visitors stand on its banks and look out over the tranquil Normandy countryside, they should remember the young signalman who, armed with little more than a damaged radio and a sense of duty, turned a desperate last stand into a vital victory, lighting a beacon of hope amid the darkness of war. And that concludes today's episode of Military History. History never forgets the heroes who fought for peace, nor the ordinary people who rose to meet extraordinary challenges in times of crisis. If you want to learn more about the untold stories of the Normandy landings, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.